12. Hell. I went to a cafe for lunch. I hadn't eaten for a day and a night. The waiter offered me a beer with my rice, which I happily accepted. Alcohol and meat are illegal in Pushkar. The waiter, a young man, asked me which places I planned to visit while I was here. There's a temple nearby. It's the most beautiful temple for miles around. I can take you there if you'd like. Sure, why not? We bounced along the uneven dirt roads on the waiter's motorbike. I enjoyed the speed, the breeze easing the intense heat of the afternoon. We drove out of town. I asked how far away the temple was. Not far, but let's get a drink first. I didn't want this, but again I said yes, sure, why not? Just one before the temple. We pulled into a scary-looking biker bar, alone on the country road, with rows of black motorbikes lined up out front. He insisted on buying my beer, and we sat awkwardly in the dark bar. "Do you have a boyfriend?" "Yes," I lied. A minute later, he suddenly put his hand on my leg. I jumped and reminded him of my boyfriend, who he claimed to have forgotten. "The temple is actually kind of far away. Let's just go back to town," he said. I tried very hard not to laugh. I was invited to another wedding by my hostel roommates, 2 Indian guys. The older of the 2 was angry with religion. He complained at length about the caste system. In his early 30s, he had been travelling for 2 years, since his childhood sweetheart had rejected his objection to her wedding. He had come uninvited, made a scene, but she didn't leave with him. The guy she married was from her caste, and I wasn't. Her family wouldn't accept me, so she couldn't either. She loved me, though. He was handsome. His hair was going grey at his temples. We drove to the wedding in the younger's jeep. He was hyper and drunk, so the older insisted on driving after a few dodgy minutes of swerving with a beer in hand. We arrived at a huge grand hotel in the countryside and went up to one of the rooms to meet their friends. There were 2 men there, wearing ornate robes and turbans. They were drinking expensive spirits. "You're Irish? We have whiskey," and snorting a big pile of MDMA off a silver tray. "I won't have any, thanks very much." I was surprised by my restraint. We never ended up at the wedding party, which I was glad of. I didn't exactly bring wedding attire. After more drinking, we just drove back to the hostel along the dark country roads, the older driving, and the younger sticking his head out the sunroof, shrieking and periodically spilling beer on my shoulder. We stopped the car to turn a corner, and the younger jumped out of the car door and ran off. We spent 20 minutes in the pitch-black night calling after him, until eventually he reappeared, and we drove along. At the hostel, we sat outside drinking a bottle of whiskey and talking, the younger sitting quietly as the older and I spoke. Suddenly, the younger grabbed the bottle of whiskey, downed it, and immediately vomited it up back onto the table. He was promptly sent to bed. The older sighed. He was drinking so much because he was nervous. He told me he has a crush on you. I was angry, maybe irrationally angry, but I wasn't going to be blamed for a man's bad behavior again. That is not my fault. That's not my fault at all. Pushkar had been busy, loud. I had hoped for it to be the quietest portion of my journey, a time for reflecting and walking by the lake. But the hostel I had chosen was full of people blaring music all night and supplying me with a constant stream of hash and beer and conversation. There was a strange old man staying there who accosted me daily and invited me to visit a nearby rose garden with him, staring into my eyes. Once, when I complained that the music in the hostel was too stressful, everyone laughed at me and told me to go stay in one of the expensive white hippie hostels down the road. This is the music Indians listen to. It's not for you. They were right about my attitude, and I laughed at me too. But I was tired. So, a week early, I set out for Udaipur.